So this is, illustrating that fact that we're bringing together, the imagination of George Lucas and the art department, Ralph McQuarrie, Joe Johnston, and all those guys that sort of helped conceive of what the world visually looked like. And it was kind of a perfect marriage of those two things, and I think that's what really made Star Wars what it is.
Well, talking about the VFX pipeline, right?
Yeah.
You guys have a very, over the years, you develop a very, very specific way in which you guys work.
Yeah, we, and it's not really different than the way other visual effects facilities work, but and I hate to bore people with it because I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it, but basically sometimes you have images that come in and then we always get images out. That's a guaranteed. We're always putting images out. And you have all these different departments that you see up there on the screen, and sometimes they're all involved in a shot, sometimes only some of them are involved, depending on the complexity of the shot. But I think one thing you can always count on is that there's been some amount of art and design put into it, kind of either in the assets that you're using in the shot or in the concept of the shot itself. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we're doing very simple things, and sometimes we're doing very complex things. But it's all part of serving the story, trying to tell the story that the director's after, and trying to get an image out that works for him. So
right. The TIE Fighter scream, the Falcon whine, these are sounds that are like embedded in our cultural consciousness. For you tackling this sequence, what were the challenges in kind of recreating those sounds, and what other things were present in the sequence?
Well, it's funny, like as you say, like a lot of those, there's so many iconic sounds that Ben Burtt had created at Skywalker Sound that we didn't want to change. We wanted to make sure we had the best high quality versions of those, so I went back to a lot of his original recordings that he had done and made sure I used the current A to D conversion technology today to get a really high quality signal to have. But things like, it's funny, the TIE Fighter sound of it coming in when she hears it, and we wanted that to really play, that's the TIE Fighter. We actually didn't have a sound of the TIE Fighter that was that long in our archives because a lot of pass-bys. Mm-hmm. There's a slightly long one in New Hope as they go by into the Death Star. So we went back to some of the original elements, which is this elephant sound, and then it's cars driving over like wet pavement mixed with that. And so we actually conceived another one that say it would be in the same zone like that. So we don't want to change those things because sound has such an easy sort of emotional and subliminal way to put you back in a universe again, and it's not on screen. So we have this like kind of back door into your mind to ground you back into the universe again, and that was one of the things that we really wanted to do, to have people feel like we're going to be part of Star Wars again. And there's stuff we'll talk about in a little bit about how we changed some things, but like even the weapon on the Falcon, we hadn't really heard it shoot in an environment where there's air. So we took some of the base, which was the base elements of that, which is a 50 caliber weapon fire. We mixed that with some classic sort of Star Wars laser to make that new shot that you hear. But even the little things in those scenes, like the sound of his chair moving in there, we wanted to make sure that was original. So we found out the kind of motor that was used in the original, and we got that motor again and re-recorded it to get the sound so it would be exactly the same. So we just really wanted to ground it, because we're all huge Star Wars fans that work on the film, so to get a chance to put something in there that pays respect to that is, and JJ, I mean, that stemmed all the way from JJ Abrams all the way to us. I mean, we're all fans of some form, and JJ was the director, and he really made that mantra for us.
I think one thing, it took us a while, the artists, to understand that one thing that is so Star Wars is its simplicity. That it's a very simple silhouette. I don't know if this came from Ralph McQuarrie or if it came from George's mind directly, but if you just look at the Falcon, it's a very simple shape, and you can understand that shape against a TIE Fighter shape and against a Star Destroyer shape. So I think we eventually thought that the biggest kind of element in there should be a Star Destroyer, and then everything else can kind of play off of that, where initially we had rebel fleets and we had all these different ships, and it became kind of a bigger thing, but it didn't have that Star Wars memorable effect. So it went back to that one shot. I think it's one of the first shots in the first trailer, which is seeing her speeder kind of go across camera, and it became just a big triangular pyramid, and that's all you need.
Yeah, and I think that was really effective, because it was one of those things that you could watch people as they were watching that shot, and you could see their faces change, as you went
Right.
from, oh, it's a speeder in the desert to, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's a start. And it was a really fun moment to see them, witnessing that and seeing the reaction to such an iconic ship that they know, and all the questions that come flooding from seeing.
One thing too though, about this new movie with JJ is that the fact that we could watch all your CineSync sessions that you guys had with all your visual effects departments around the world, and we would all call in and be looking at the latest shots, and sound was invited to be part of that, so it would also give us inspiration to see even work in progress.
Yeah.
We could watch, we were at the Skywalker Ranch, you guys are in the Presidio, but we were all synchronized with our films to be able to listen to JJ give his direction from Santa Monica over CineSync and watch all that and get inspiration from it and be part of the process really early on.
Yeah, that was cool.
The radar dish.
Yes.
Where did the idea for the new radar dish come from?
Well, maybe you can talk about that a little bit. I think Darren Guilford, the production designer, was involved in that.
Yeah, I think it started with a conversation of what does the Millennium Falcon look like 30 years after Return of the Jedi, and we threw a lot of ideas around of that it deliberately looks just awful. So when Han Solo sees it for the first time, he's like, "What have you done with my ship?" And in the same way that I think Lando Calrissian at one point said, like, "What did you do with my ship?" kind of thing. So deliberately making it a little bit uglier, and this illustration kind of portrays that a bit of adding some junk on top of it. And it eventually got whittled down to, well, we never see it post missing its radar dish from Return of the Jedi. It's flying through one of those, as Pat said, convenient little slots, loses its radar dish, but what does that radar dish look like? And I think someone at one point said, well, why don't we just have it look like exactly like the Blockade Runner radar dish? So the first ship you see in A New Hope that flies into camera has a radar dish that's a rectangular looking thing. And doing what we do best for Star Wars, we just rip off what's already been done before. And we just took that and literally just slapped that one.
I've talked to you about the honesty before.
I know.
It's an homage. It's a respectful homage.
I don't know if you've all noticed, but Star Wars has this history of not being the cleanest universe in the world, and all the ships have this like layers of gack all over them. And so being able to paint in layers of dirt like that and have control over all those layers and not have it be sort of a mystery from shot to shot, what you're going to get, and the same thing with BB-8, being able to make him look absolutely perfect in comparison to the model was really important. So that was sort of like we sort of revitalized how we built assets on the show, and that's going to carry forward into a lot of other ILM shows and Star Wars shows for sure going forward.
Is that confirmation that the Falcon is in Episode 8?
Anyway.
So when it comes to Star Wars, another vital thing that people are aware of are are droids and the way droids sound. Obviously, there's a very, very cute droid in this movie. But I understand that you have a history with droid sounds and voices personally already.
I've played some voices for droids in various permutations of Star Wars. I played
Do one.
No, I played a guy that he was the bad guy in Revenge of the Sith as General Grievous. He was the leader of the droid army.
Just a bad guy, just General Grievous, that's all.
And then all of his dorky little compatriots, the battle droids, all those little guys that are like, look out, Roger, Roger, all those guys. That was
Wow, that really was you.
And then Grievous would say stuff like, what's the situation, Captain? You know, that kind of stuff. It was fun. It was really fun.
I mean, James, what was the design process for BB-8 like?
He was something that JJ wanted fairly early on. He wanted, what is the new R2-D2? And we did a lot of research and kind of figuring out, well, does he float? Does he have multiple legs? And then one day we got this Post-it. I'm like, well, what is this? And it's, and we were like, there was very little, there's very little dialogue or anything behind it. It was just like, here, just take a look at this. And we all were looking at it and we're like, wow, this is like a rolling droid. How perfectly Star Wars can this be? And then just from the simplest sketch, we evolved it from, this little snowman looking thing to this like really kind of cute, lovable character. And BB-8 fits right in the Star Wars world in that we have all this drama happening, and then we get to cut away to a little comedy, a little something for the kids.
Right.
And then you can see in these drawings how it developed. And again, it's part of the process, and it happens in visual effects too, where we go as far as we possibly can take it, and then we look at it and assess it, and eventually kind of comes back around to the simplest, first point that we kind of took at it. And so our instinct was, or JJ's instinct was right, in that it's just that very simple silhouette.